G'day, Starlo here. I've written and talked quite a bit in recent years about eating some of the so-called B-grade table fish and really enjoying them. And one of the ones that I've mentioned is Australian salmon, particularly the smaller ones. And I know there's a fair bit of skepticism out there, people going, oh, yuck, salmon. So I've hit the beach this morning to try and catch at least one and show you how I prepare them for the table. It's less than ideal conditions. Rained all night, sea's a bit sloppy, and we're right on the bottom of the tide. Tide just turned actually a couple of minutes ago. Probably not ideal conditions, but I thought I'd shoot out and see if I could catch a salmon or two. I've got a slow pitch jig on there. I'll throw that for 5 or 10 minutes, but if I don't get any action on it, I've got half a dozen pilchards in my bucket as well. I've only got an hour or so to fish this morning, so let's see if we can find some. I head up along the beach looking for a likely piece of terrain, ideally a hole or a gutter, but there's not a lot of obvious features visible in the sloppy conditions. This'll have to do, I reckon. I'm going to kick off casting that slow pitch metal jig. Jigging in the surf can be a really deadly technique at times, and I've devoted an entire YouTube video to it. You can find the link to it here at the top right of the screen or in the comments down below. I belt the jig out into the surf, let it hit the bottom, then work it with a series of rod lifts and cranks of the reel. But no action this morning. I wonder if the stirred up and highly aerated wash is making it too hard for fish to see the lure. It just doesn't feel like it's going to do the trick today. Oh well, look, I've had half a dozen casts with the jig and no hits. I'm going to switch straight over to the bait. I think I'm just going to do it tough this morning anyway. Not great conditions at all. It's really sloppy out there and there's a fair bit of current to the north along the beach. With a simple running sinker rig and half a pilchard strung on a pair of 1/0 hooks snelled to my leader, I head back down to the water's edge for another try. Maybe it'll be a bait day. Out she goes. The water's really warm at the moment and out a bit wider. The current is pumping down from the north. So I think we've got a bit of a reverse current in here on the beach. It's actually running back to the north, and there's a good bite. Ooh, that was a good bite. Oh, he's come back too. Oh, missed him. Still there. Got him this time. He's not real big. Hopefully, he's what I'm looking for. Woohoo! Oh, he might be a bit bigger than I thought. Wow, he was really insistent. He had 3 or 4 goes at that bait before hooking up. I don't know what this is. It doesn't really seem quite active enough for a salmon. It's quite a heavy fish. Oh yeah. Behaving a bit more salmon-like now. Yeah, I think it's a small salmon. This is probably exactly what I was looking for. No, it's actually a TAILOR. Oh, lucky not to be bitten off because he's really swallowed it. Spat a bit of my bait out there. Ah, he's not a bad TAILOR. Good stuff. All right, well, that's a fish that a lot of people actually regard as quite a good eating fish. Personally, I've never been a huge fan, but in recent years I've started to enjoy them much more. It's a lot about how you care for them though, and I'll show you that now. So lucky not to have been bitten off here. Oh, yeah, there you go, he bit it off now. So the first thing I'm going to do with this fish is brain spike it. This is called ikijimi. It's a Japanese method for instantly killing the fish. And then I'm also going to bleed it just by breaking a couple of gill arches in here. You don't have to cut right through the throat latch area like a lot of people think. Just break some gill arches and that fish will bleed out. I let it bleed out on the sand before putting it in my bucket. Not a bad start. Let's see if there's another one out there. Again, you'll notice I'm not casting a really long cast. It's just a nice comfortable roll the arms over, So often the fish are in closer here, particularly today. You can see there's a sandbar out there wider that the waves are breaking on, and then a little bit of deeper stuff close to the beach, and that's where the fish are sitting. Oh yeah, straight away. Wow, that would have barely hit the bottom. Must have landed right on top of him. Nice active fish. Use the wave action to hopefully bring him up. Whoa! This thing's got some go. Okay, this one's a salmon. This is what I was after, and it's about the right size too. I like these ones around the just under the kilo mark. This one's probably only about 750, 800 grams. And that's a fish that a lot of people don't rate as a table fish, but in recent years I've come to really enjoy them, and it'll be interesting doing a taste test comparison between the salmon, the way I prepare them, and the fresh TAILOR. That'll be my lunch today, I reckon. Look at that, just beautifully pinned on one of those hooks. Let's come out. Right. So I'm going to brain spike him with my modified screwdriver. Just follow that preoperculum, which is the first curve of the gill cover, not back here at the back of the gill cover. Just follow that up until you're behind the eye. Go in at a forward angle, twist, and you'll usually know when you hit the right spot because the fish will just give a bit of a kick and relax. That fish is brain dead now, but what I'm going to do is just break a couple of gill arches again, just with my fingers, a couple on each side. Again, you don't have to cut right through that throat latch area that a lot of people talk about, and that fish will bleed out really quickly. I'm going to show you how I fillet them, get rid of all the bloodline out of them, and turn Australian salmon into a really tasty table fish. Seriously, I'm not kidding, so keep watching till the end. First though, I'm going to gut and gill these two fish right here on the beach. Obviously I wouldn't do this in a patrolled swimming area where people were enjoying a dip in the surf, for all sorts of reasons, not least the fact that the blood and guts might attract unwanted attention from some toothy critters. But there's no one for kilometres this morning, so I figure it's fine to do it right here, and to let the surf and the seagulls take care of the offal. Getting the innards out of a fish within half an hour or so of landing it, especially in warmer weather, is a big secret to maintaining freshness and flavour. And there's no better place to wash your catch and get rid of any sand than right here in the surging wash, in all that clean flowing salt water. Lovely. That was a great little morning session. Time to head home, chill those fish down for an hour or two, and then fillet them, and I'll show you the magic. Okay, so I've chilled the cleaned fish for a couple of hours to firm them up, and now I'm going to fillet them, starting with the TAILOR. Apologies in advance, I've always filleted from the tail. It's not what the textbooks tell you to do, but it works for me. You just need to watch your fingers. That's the first fillet off. TAILOR have relatively soft, slightly grey coloured flesh with a thin bloodline down the centre of the fillet. Alright, I'll put that one aside and knock the other fillet off. I'll speed this bit up to avoid putting you to sleep. Next step is to cut away the bony rib cage area from the fillet and discard it. It doesn't go to waste though. Then I feel with my finger for the row of bones along the first part of the centre line. Sometimes they're called pin bones. By slicing closely on each side of these, I can remove them in the next step, which is the skinning of the fillet. These days I skin a lot of fish as it saves the mess and fuss of scaling them, but if you like the skin, scale them and leave it on. Skinning's pretty easy if you do it like this, and as you can see, there's little or no wastage. I now remove that little slice with the pin bones in it that I separated earlier and feel for any other bones that I might have missed. There's one in the rib cage area, so let's cut it out now. There you go, one skinned boneless tailor fillet ready to cook. Okay, let's hit fast forward again and repeat the whole process on the other fillet. I wish I could really do it that fast, but I mightn't have all my fingers if I did. I'm going to trim off that little sliver of bloodline too. Beautiful. Righto, next up the salmon. Again, I start from the tail, but do what works for you. The salmon's heavier scales make it a bit harder going on both you and your knife, but the process is basically the same. Salmon flesh is firmer and pinkish red in colour with a more defined central bloodline. Flip the fish over and repeat the process. There's that bloodline again. As I did with the tailor, I now cut away the bony rib cage before slicing down either side of that row of pin bones. Skinning's even easier with salmon as their skin is thicker and tougher than a tailor's, so you're less likely to slip and cut through it. Drag the fillet back and forth across the blade and keep the knife angled downwards. With the skin off, the salmon's much wider bloodline is revealed. Fortunately, however, it's only shallow, especially in these smaller fish. I'm removing the pin bones that I separated earlier now. Don't worry, none of these scraps go to waste in our household. They're greatly appreciated by my team of onlookers and supporters. Next up, I slice the fillet completely in half lengthwise. This allows me to get at those wide, shallow bloodlines, which are now easily trimmed away. And these are my dog's favourite bits. Good on you, Jazzy. Finger licking good. Don't worry, I'll wash my hands before I get back to the filleting. Keep trimming until you've removed as much as possible of that dark meat. This is the stuff that gives the strong flavour that many people complain about in Australian salmon or kahawai. The more of it you can remove, the tastier the end product will be. Trust me, it's worth taking a little bit of time doing this. And a sharp knife really helps too. Repeat the process with the other half of the fillet. Check out how good the flesh looks now that I've trimmed all the dark meat off, or nearly all. Let's rip through the other fillet at high speed and do exactly the same things to it. Skin, debone, remove as much as possible of that strongly flavoured bloodline and any other dark meat. There you go, that's the salmon done. 4 lovely pieces of boneless meat with virtually no bloodline. How good does that look? I reckon a lot of people would have trouble even picking that as being salmon. It's interesting to compare it at this point with the softer, greyer tailor flesh. They're really quite different. Here on a plate you can see that difference more easily. The salmon is pinkish and firm. The tailor a little softer and more greyish in colour. What I'm going to do now is cut a small piece from high on the shoulder of a fillet from each fish and pan fry it very simply and quickly in a little melted butter. No other additives, no salt and pepper, no lemon juice, nothing. Being such small pieces, they cook very quickly in the hot pan and they're smelling good too. I turn them once and then kill the heat. They're basically done. Just give them a couple of seconds longer to finish off. Nice one. And the verdict? Well, that was the tailor. And that was the salmon. The tailor was softer, the flavours were reasonably similar, but I actually marginally preferred the salmon. Both absolutely delicious though. Seriously, give it a try for yourself. I'm going to cut the rest up into small pieces, coat it in panko breadcrumbs, cook it up and have it with a salad. Don't knock the old Aussie salmon or the tailor. They're both great eating fish. Until next time, this is Starlo wishing you tight lines. Gonna cook some more of that.